The 1760 publication of Fragments of Ancient Poetry, the first of James Macpherson's great Scots-Gaelic Ossian epics, told from the perspective of Ossian, the son and heir of the great Caledonian king Fingal, was the most influential literary event of the 18th century. It was the kind of Prince Harry autobiography of its time. And although this particular prince and heir didn't get tugged off by an old horse lady behind a pub, Ossian, it certainly makes for compelling reading. Ossian was a blind warrior poet, and so when he would claim that he had never seen a woman in his life before, he actually meant it. You know, because sons of monarchs, they have a bad habit of lying about that sort of thing, you know. Ossian is the son of the Caledonian king Fingal, who protects his Celtic kingdom of Morven from the marauding Brittonic tribes and the encroaching Roman legions. James Macpherson, he wrote Ossian in the aftermath of the Jacobite rebellions and the destruction of the Highlands. The Highlands was viewed by the British government at this time as a barbaric area of savagery and backwardness, and in desperate need of modernising, commercialisation and civilisation. And the British government deemed that the best way to do this would be to send retired English people to the Highlands to live, you know, because there's nothing more civilised than someone who loves free prescriptions but votes reform. Ossian is comprised of Gaelic poems from supposedly ancient Gaelic manuscripts, but mostly James Macpherson wandered his Highland homeland and collated Gaelic ballads, Gaelic songs and Gaelic stories into this great Celtic epic. But this left him open to criticism from the British intellectual community, who viewed Macpherson's sources along the same lines that Boris Johnson adopts when he's considering cheating on a spouse, i.e. oral doesn't count. Despite the scepticism, Ossian was a literary sensation across the continent, and it sparked nationalist revivals in folk traditions and native languages across Europe. James Macpherson, he had created a piece of literary work which was as respected and as difficult to understand and impossible to follow as anything that William Shakespeare could come up with. Ossian was published at the height of the Scottish Enlightenment, and Enlightenment thinkers in Edinburgh and Glasgow up to this point had gone out of their way to disavow themselves from any association with Highland, Gaelic, Jacobite culture. But now the Scottish intelligentista communities had this work of literary genius that they could sink their teeth into. And so they funded James Macpherson and they encouraged him to make English translations of his Gaelic poetry. Edinburgh at this point latched on to Highland culture. They wanted James Macpherson to come up with a Princess Diana memorial tartan that they could then flog to unsuspecting tourists on the Royal Mile. Ossian was important because it allowed the Enlightenment figures to identify as emotionally Celtic but practically British, the kind of Rod Stewart interpretation of Scottish identity. Ossian was this gushing, romantic, great Celtic epic set in a distant Scottish past. It was the Outlander of its time, and it played a huge impact in changing people's perceptions of the Highlands from militant and Jacobite to swashbuckling, romantic and otherworldly. Scottish writers who would come in the aftermath of James Macpherson, such as Sir Walter Scott, would pick up on this hyper-romantic version of the Highlands and create the kind of twee image of Highland culture and Scottish identity that exists in Scotland to this day. That kind of like shortbread tin, tea towel vision of Scotland. What Sir Walter Scott was doing wasn't necessarily bad, it was just a bit cringe. It's like a kind of white guy with dreadlocks. At the exact moment that people are becoming more and more fascinated with this romantic vision of the Highlands, people here are being forcibly removed from their homes and the distinctive Highland way of life has been destroyed forever. Historians continue to debate James Macpherson's motivations through Ossian. Many believe that Macpherson, the son of Macpherson clan gentry, was attempting to use Ossian to try and protect the Gaelic language and as a kind of means of putting across coded nationalist Jacobite sentiments. Many others believe, however, that Macpherson was attempting to appropriate Highland culture and make it appeal to a wider British audience. Macpherson was himself something of an imperial Gael, After his writing career, James Macpherson would go on to become a member of the British Parliament, encouraging many other gifted writers to become members of the British Parliament. Brilliant figures such as Nadine Dorris. Regardless of his motivations, Ossian, it sparks the debate over which version of Scottishness is correct. And ultimately, that's probably the most Scottish thing that it could ever have accomplished.
Bran and I had a wee wander around the Ballaville estate at Canusie, which was once James Macpherson's estate, right in the heart of the Macpherson clanlands. And we stopped at the Macpherson Clan Museum at Newton Moor, which is a cracking wee, brilliantly created museum about Clan Macpherson and has some great stuff about Ossian. And of course, we had to stop in at the famous Ossian's Hall at the Hermitage, an incredible wee beauty spot in Dunkeld. And if you would like to come and see me at this year's Edinburgh Fringe, I'm on every day at 2:45 at the Beehive Inn.